a recent poll has come out which puts Reform ahead of the Labour Party, with the Tories on top. As you can see on your screen, the Tories are first with 26%, followed by Reform with 24%, and narrowly behind is Labour on 23%. We also have a breakdown of the numbers. In this poll, you can see that Labour are roughly even when it comes to gender, and Reform have the widest gap, with 22% of men saying they would vote Reform compared to 12% of women. Notice the don't knows, however. 41% of women are not decided, which seems like the biggest indicator here. Now, of course, this is just one poll. Does that mean Reform is actually ahead? I don't think so. However, polls have consistently shown that the Tories are ahead of Labour. Lewis, what are your thoughts about this poll? I mean, will we see a Reform government, not this election, but maybe the next?
I love that you used the screenshot that I sent you of the data.
Is
You
that
can see
not the
what
one?
that was the same screenshot that I sent you of the data, yeah.
Oh, yes, it
Um,
is. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Lewis.
what's interesting about the data, obviously, is the gender split as well. It was twice as many yeses for reform for men versus women, which I think is interesting. There was a few tabs on that sheet, actually. One of the questions was, if there was a general election tomorrow, who would you vote for? And that's the data that is on screen. But there was another tab, which was like, if you were forced to vote, who would you vote for? And that's I think it was a 33% that you just said don't know. It goes up to something like 68%. If people had a gun to their head, who would you vote for right now? Almost 70% of people said they don't know. And again, going back to the previous point about Labour, they've only been in power for a few months, but the fact that they can't take advantage of 14 years of Tory rule and come in and at least look somewhat competent is a bit scary for the next few years, because Reform are organising. I hate to use these words because it sounds like I'm praising them, but they're doing a good job in terms of building up their base. They are organising on the ground. They are at community centres. They're going to events. They're getting a lot of time in the press, too much time in the press, actually, because again, they're favoured, especially Nigel Farage. He gets too many appearances. And on top of that as well, if you actually look into the Parliament website, you can actually see what types of questions they're submitting to the government, because they have the right to do that and the right to request information. People like Rupert Lowe, Richard Tice, they are gathering a lot of information from the government. I think Rupert Lowe, bearing in mind he's only been in Parliament a few months, has already asked over 100 questions to the government. And it's all focused around migration and data. Migration and data. It's all focused around asking questions about migration linked to criminality. They're asking all these very specific questions because they're building a case. And again, they're going to continue winning with this. Nigel Farage has got GB News, which has just taken over Sky News in terms of viewership. And on YouTube as well. I looked at the data the other day when this report came out. They're beating Sky News by double the amount of average viewers on YouTube as well, which is obviously the most popular platform in terms of video watching online. You've got Nigel Farage spitting out lies like he did the other day on GB News, saying that only 1/5 of people coming to this country are actually working. But he's kind of telling the truth but lying at the same time, because he's using the word working, because obviously he's not talking about the 450,000 students, which immediately brings it up to a majority of people in this country who come here are actually doing something. But he's using, those twisted words that, populists and fascists use. But at the end of the day, they are making gains. I don't think if there was an election tomorrow, they would actually win. It's just, that anti-establishment vote that people will do on polls. And again, it was just a few thousand people. But this is early days. They only just officially started getting organised a couple of months before the election. Barely even that, and they've already made some good gains. And we've got the prospect of Elon Musk, which I don't necessarily think was a real story, but I think he is going to be involved in some way in the future in our elections. And it's very scary what's going to happen over the next few years. It truly is.
From all the talk by Reform for our GDC, they're trying to say how popular they are. That's not true. The reality is no political party is popular. I mean, they're all equally polling in the 20s. So they're all so divisive. This isn't an endorsement as such, but rather due to the party splitting. And this really shows that first past the post is finished.
Absolutely. Obviously, we had just the other day the vote in Parliament on proportional representation, which again was a non-binding bill, and it won by 2 votes. And weirdly, Nigel Farage wasn't there for the vote, which is funny because he's missed about there's been about 50 to 60 votes in Parliament since we've started that he could have been a part of, and he's only been there for about 20 of them. And also another member of his party, I can't, was it Rupert Lowe, I think, who voted against PR as well. I'd love
That's
to,
really astonishing, isn't it? Like that's voting against your interest.
yeah.
It's funny, but
He is a mastermind of the media, though, because ahead of missing a vote about a week and a half ago, I think it was on the smoking ban vote. I can't remember which one it was, uh, and he already put out a tweet, and I think he said it on his show as well. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to get shit for not being at this vote, but I know it's going to pass." And then immediately after people call him out for not being there for the vote, all of his supporters are all over social media, they're all over TikTok saying, "Well, he knew it was going to pass." Like they just eat up anything that he says. But at the end of the day, they are making gains. I wouldn't say they're
yeah,
popular, but they're making gains. They get a
no.
disproportionate amount of media attention compared to someone like, the Green Party who's only got one less seat than
Mhm.
them. And they are doing a measurably good job in terms of what they want to achieve, and they've still got another 4.5 years to achieve it.
Well, that's why our political system's so broken because before 2017, you had a multi-party system. Okay, obviously the smaller parties couldn't be in government, but you had the Lib Dems and other smaller parties gaining ground. And then there was sort of like the great sort of push back to the main parties in 2017. Labour got 40%, the Tories got 41, 42. And for a time being, it was back to like the traditional way of just Labour and the Tories. And now it's gone again because, once again, no political party is popular and no one likes them. It's going to be winning by default. That's essentially what it is.
With the first past the post system as well, Labour just got in on 33.6%, and some people won their seat with as little as 30%. It's very possible Reform could come in with an even lower majority than Keir Starmer got in terms of the vote share and still win just enough seats to get a majority in Parliament. Because people talk about this idea of like, oh, first past the post is great because it keeps out the fringes, but it's actually also a high risk system as well. That if the fringe just moves just above that level of fringe and gets just enough votes and splits it across multiple constituencies, they can come in with a tiny majority.
Support independent media, support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.